many people may be impacted by toxicity, and it comes into our body in so many different ways, especially heavy metal toxicity. The challenge is you may not be aware of the fact that you have some form of toxicity going on. You may also not know that some of the physical symptoms that you're experiencing can come from that. And for those people who are perhaps more aware of that or see something on social media and you think a detox is the way to go, I want to start by telling you that not all detoxes are equal. And then I want to share my wonderful guest today, Dr. J. Wilkins, who has been on before. Today, I am really happy to have my wonderful guest, Dr. J. Wilkins. Jay, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Mira. It's great to be here.
And, I really am so delighted to be talking to you about this whole concept of heavy metal toxicity. I think a lot of people are unaware of how it can be impacting their health. The first most important thing, of course, is where do we get this exposure from? It's not like we're sitting there eating lead paint chips anymore, hopefully.
Right. Right. You'd think this day and age, we would see less exposure, but that's just not the case. We're still exposed. Any sort of electronics, of course, they're made with metals. There's metals in the atmosphere. There's metals in the foods that we eat. There's metals in the air that we breathe, the water we drink. So it's just, we're bombarded. Of course, many of us may still have amalgam fillings in our teeth, which is still being used today, as we know in the past, and even with current vaccinations, there can be metal used as a preservative. So there's still plenty of ways that we are being bombarded by mercury, cadmium, lead, aluminum, many metals that really cause a lot of disruption in our bodies.
And, I'm sure a lot of people listening are like, yeah, but I've had my fillings for years. Surely they're fine now. Do those continue to leach into the body?
They do, yeah. It's the interesting thing is that the EPA has these very strict ways of being able to dispose of metal toxicity and contain metals and so on, and putting into the soil. But somehow, miraculously, if we put mercury in our teeth, it's okay. But no, yeah, it's a continually, we bite down, especially if you have other metals on the opposite tooth, then you're actually creating like a battery type of a reaction. If you think about when you try to, jumpstart a car and how when those metals hit each other. So yeah, there's a continual leaching of these metals into the body when you have amalgams.
And I have to believe that that's like the most direct source. But then, as you mentioned, we also have metals in our environment that we're exposed to in a lot of different ways, it sounds like, as well as potentially in some of the foods that we're eating. What do these metals do to the body? How does that affect us?
Yeah, several ways. The primary ways, as a naturopath, of course, we're always looking for causative factors that cause health issues. We don't just look at symptoms. We try to look at, okay, what would be causing the symptoms? And quite honestly, there's quite a slew of different potential symptoms that can be caused by metal toxicity. So, even just general fatigue and headaches and those type of things. But then we know that the endocrine system is very susceptible to metal toxicity, the thyroid, the pituitary, hypothalamus. So you can get a lot of endocrine issues based on metal toxicity, a lot of neurological issues. So things that would manifest themselves like Parkinson's type symptoms, or even, Lou Gehrig's, or a lot of those types of problems have been associated with metal toxicity. And then the big one that our company is involved in is nitric oxide and cardiovascular type of support. So, and it definitely disrupts the arterial system as well. The cardiovascular system, those metals get into the endothelium, and it's very interesting. Zinc and mercury are very close, zinc and lead are very closely related if you look at the periodic table. And
Mhm.
so zinc is needed to create nitric oxide in the endothelium, and lead a lot of times can jam up those receptors so that the zinc can't get in to where then nitric oxide takes place. So zinc also with cardiovascular issues, atherosclerosis and congestive heart failure and all sorts of things like that are associated also with metal toxicity.
And I imagine it's not that easy to figure out that that's what's going on. Are there tests that you recommend? Is there a list of symptoms that people should be checking off? Like, how do you really sort of identify if that's something that's happening for you?
Right. No, that's a good question as well. And there's a few different ways. A gold standard has been hair analysis, where you take a sample of your hair and you send it into a lab and they can look for metal toxicity that way. That's been used for a long time. There's also urine and stool sample testing that can be done that can identify metals. Something that I've used for years is more of the biofeedback type of devices that are out there that can also identify toxins like mold, fungus, viral, bacterial, chemical, and metal toxicity. So that's another more of an out of the box type of screening device that's been used, but it's certainly effective in helping to figure out underlying issues.
So that actually brings up an interesting question. If someone has some kind of a virus, let's say you've got the flu or something else, or if they are currently dealing with and perhaps not aware of a mold overgrowth in their system, does that in any way exacerbate what's happening with the heavy metals in the body?
Yeah, it does. In fact, that's a great question. Candida is a great example. Mercury toxicity severely lowers immune function. And as we know, Candida is just an opportunistic organism. It's naturally occurring in your body. And when the shields come down, the immune system shields come down, Candida will say, hey, awesome, let's propagate and take over. So definitely, yeah. So that's another thing. You can have somebody that has been trying to treat candida issues for years and really have a hard time, overcoming it. And again, you got to go to a cause of the cause, right? So
Right.
yes, candida is a cause, but you might have to go a little deeper and go into the cause of the cause. And metals, certainly mercury in particular, can dramatically affect candida overgrowth.
And what about molds? Like I know all across the country, so many areas because they're damp or humid or they've had excess rainfall or whatever, we're seeing mold just exploding across the country. And how is that impacted by toxic metals?
Same thing, really. Your if your immune system is down, most molds are not dangerous in themselves, right?
Yeah.
There are some that are, but in general, mold is not something that's dangerous. But if the immune system becomes affected we start having these autoimmune type of reaction, then that could very well go back to metals as well. A lot of these autoimmune issues where metals get trapped in the cell tissue and the body starts to attack to try to get rid of that and can set up a autoimmune type of a problem. But yeah, certainly, again, if your immune system is where it needs to be, then a lot of times, unless you're living in an environment that's just really inundated, right, with molds, that can be
Yeah.
a real challenge. But in general, we should all be able to navigate through molds and pollens and viruses and funguses and all these different things. But if metals are dragging the immune system down, we're going to struggle.
So what do we do? Like, how can we get these metals out of our body without overwhelming our system? Because one
Yeah.
of the things I just want to mention for anybody who's listening, our body does tend to store these heavy metals in fat. And so if we're losing weight or if we're somehow shedding them, we can have a toxic dump, which then makes us feel even worse. So what's the safest way to get rid of them?
Good thought there. Yeah. So that's where you want to make sure you're obviously drinking a lot of water because your lymphatic system needs water. It doesn't have a natural pump like our heart does, our circulatory system. We need to drink the water to keep the sewer lines open and flowing. So that's the first thing. Yeah, if you're losing weight, that's why water drinking is so important if you're doing a weight loss program, so that as those toxins come out, we got the lymphatic flushing. But excuse me, outside of that, the infrared saunas are a great way to be able to detoxify metals. And again, you want to be drinking plenty of water if you're doing that type of thing. There is the ionic foot baths. That is a nice way also to mechanically be able to start moving these metals out. And then as far as things that can be consumed, there are certain things that have an affinity for metals. One is that's been used for probably 70 years now is EDTA, which is a synthetic, say, amino acid that especially leaches onto lead, but other metals as well. So chelation, that's the word that's used, and chelate just means to claw or to bind to the metals in this case. And so EDTA, strong affinity for metals. Modified citrus pectin has been used very effectively. Chlorella, cilantro, shilajit, and zeolites are excellent binder to metals. They just have an affinity, like they're like magnets. So that's a great adjunct. And then we always recommend doing things to support the kidneys and the liver as you do your detox as well. Excuse me.
That's okay. And so I also want to clarify for anybody who's listening, because I know I get clients so often who come to me and they're like, oh, I'm doing this detox and I feel terrible. Like, but it's so good. And like they're proud of themselves for really wrecking their body in the name of following a detox. And so as a doctor, I'd like your clarification. A detox should not make you feel bad.
Well, yes and no. And I'm not going to, that's my personal feeling. We do a lot of, I've been doing detox programs since generally with homeopathy and other types of things. And you will have people have a Herxheimer's or a detox reaction. And quite frankly, the people that have those, you really do the best. I mean, they're like ones that will see the greatest improvement a lot of times after they get through those general detox symptoms. I'm not recommending it. It's not like, hey, I hope you have these severe detox symptoms. However, that can happen. But what I will say is with the product that we formulated called Keelan, has all those nutrients in there that I mentioned, is that it seems to be very gentle. Those things that I mentioned there, all those nutrients, they do work gently. People can start slowly, maybe just a capsule a day until they work their way up. We do put in there the integrated support like milk thistle and uva
Oh, for
earth.
the liver. Yeah, that's great.
Right. So that way, as they are cleansing, they have the support for the filters as well. So we rarely see people have any sort of real bad detox type of symptoms when they use those ingredients that way.
I will share as a nutrition educator, my personal preference, if people are trying to do some kind of a detoxification protocol, is that we take it as slow as possible. I am not a fan of creating a lot of stress in the body, especially when we're trying to nourish and nurture. And so it sounds like the formulation that you've got has a lot of things in there that are really supportive. How long do we consider trying some kind of a detox protocol to help purge these heavy metals from the system, and how often?
Good. Yeah, there's a few different thought processes on this. I'm not necessarily opposed to any of them. Some people look at a metal detox like they would a parasite cleanse.
Okay.
Where once or twice a year they'll do a cleanse. So typically a parasite cleanse will last up to 6 weeks, and that's the best way to handle that. So you get the parents and the babies, so you go through like that.
The life cycle. Yeah.
Right. So the same thing with a metal detox, somewhere a 6-week or a 2-month cleanse where you go after it more assertively. Again, not necessarily having any symptoms with that, but maybe go up to 4 to 6 to 8 capsules a day. Recommended dosage on our Keelan product is 2 capsules a day. That's like a minimum amount. And some people will do 2 capsules a day every day because they know that they're getting involved. They're having metals daily. And so they look for a way to be able to cleanse those metals daily as well. So there's a few different ways to look at it. We could do a short, cleanse and just do it once or twice a year, or maybe we just do a daily thing where we're getting rid of what we're coming in contact on a daily basis. Again, having knowledge of how severe our toxicity is a great thing. If you are working with a practitioner and they can give you some directions and have maybe some ways that they can test for dosages, or based on your symptoms or your screenings that you've had done, your lab work, they can make recommendations on that. So that's maybe an ideal way, is if you have a way to really monitor it. But it's very safe to daily use these things. It's not going to cause any problems. So the only thing that we recommend is that ideally you'll use some sort of mineral replacement. These chelators can also attach to important minerals like calcium and zinc and magnesium and things like that.
And is there ever a set of circumstances or a time frame when you don't recommend doing some kind of a heavy metal detox?
Yeah, probably in a third trimester of a pregnancy or something like that. That might not be, or even during a pregnancy in general. That's not necessarily maybe the best time to do a heavy metal detox, but certainly 4 is a good idea, because they
And
found
I would include breastfeeding in that, because the body already is using so much from the fat stores to nourish the baby. We don't want any extra flooding the system.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good point. But as mentioned, certainly beforehand, because as we know, in the placenta blood, the cord blood, there's hundreds of toxins that they're finding in these.
I know.
So anything we can do to clean up prior to would be a good idea.
Always a good thing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jay, thank you so much for being here today. This has been, as always, really wonderful. You do such a great job of explaining things for us and really helping us dive deeper into these kinds of wellness topics. I so appreciate you. If someone wanted to connect a little closer, where would they find you?
They can go to Bionox, BIO, and can reach out to any of our staff there. My email is dr, and certainly if anybody has any questions, be glad to entertain those.
Well, that's so great. And for everybody listening, I will put all the links and information that he highlighted down below, so you'll be able to access that. Thank you so much for listening, Jay. Thank you so much for being here. And folks, remember, in all you do, make today a healthy day. Bye-bye now.